Shemai Pawb, today we're going to have a look at an experiment. We're going to use yeast, sugar and water to see what reaction occurs. So today I would like you to write a prediction and a conclusion. So we're going to start off with a prediction. I'm going to give you a little bit of a background. So yeast is a natural organism, a microorganism, and it is like a fungus. So when it is fed, it grows. It also produces and releases some natural gases. So natural gases are things like oxygen, carbon dioxide, hydrogen, and so on. So think about what we used yeast for, and we know we put that in bread, and when we put yeast in bread, it allows the bread to rise. Now the oven, when it's nice and warm, allows that yeast to grow and to rise higher, but it also is fed by putting in other ingredients such as sugar. So when bread rises, there's lots of bubbles that form in the bread, and that's how you get a nice light fluffy loaf. Now a very similar thing happens with the yeast, the sugar and the water when they're all mixed together in a bottle. One natural gas is released. What gas do you think that might be? When writing a prediction, it's important to link it to real life experiences. So I think that the natural gas released will be oxygen, because when I put bread in the oven, the yeast and the sugar and the warmth react and the bread rises. The air bubbles in there, I think, are caused from oxygen. So I've linked it to a real life experience. We need to make sure that we're stretching ourselves. A prediction is asking you to make assumptions on what you think is going to happen. Pause the video now and write your prediction. So I've put an inch and a bit of warm water in the bottom of my bottle. I'm going to add in approximately 7 grams of yeast and a teaspoon of sugar. Once I've done that, I'm going to put the balloon on and swirl the bottle so it all mixes together. In approximately 20 minutes time then, we should see the balloons start to increase. So I'm going to just add them in now. So the balloon is on tightly, and I'm just going to swirl the ingredients that's in the bottle around. So think about yeast when you add it to your bread mixture. What does the yeast allow the dough to do when you put it in the oven? So the warm water is like the heat of the oven. Obviously you've got the yeast, and then the sugar, it activates the yeast. So as you can see, my balloon is already starting to increase, and there is a natural gas inside the balloon. So have a think what natural gas you think might be inside that balloon and what would allow it to expand. The oxygen is the air we breathe, and then there's another gas that we exhale, and that is the one that will be trapped inside the balloon. So how did it all work? As the yeast eats the sugar, it releases a gas called carbon dioxide. The gas fills the bottle, and then it fills the balloon as more gas is created. We all know that there are holes in bread, but how are they made? So the answer sounds a lot like this. Most breads are made using yeast, and believe it or not, yeast is actually a living microorganism. When bread is made, the yeast becomes spread out in the flour. Each bit of yeast makes tiny gas bubbles, and that puts millions of bubbles or holes in our bread before it gets baked. The yeast experiment here obviously expanded our balloon when the carbon dioxide was created. So now I would like you to write a conclusion. A conclusion is where you sum up everything that's happened in the experiment. You need to look back at your prediction and have a look at what you wrote, Were you right? If so, how were you right? What part were you right for everything, or were there a few things that you needed to tweak? If you were wrong, why were you wrong? So the question is, when you write your conclusion, was my prediction correct? Have a go at writing this. Make sure you're using connectives such as because, and, so. You might even want to up level it further, especially if you're in year 6, and use I was right because I thought the balloon would expand. However, I thought it would fill with oxygen, not carbon dioxide. Making sure that you have those words in there, the language that will up level and upskill your work is really important. Public Key Stage 2, and we are looking forward to seeing your predictions and conclusions. Remember, no cheating. Pause the video at the beginning so that you can write your conclusion before you see the experiment. Hwyl fawr pawb.